My bold prediction for 2026 is this idea of move over precision medicine, and here comes precision health. So the idea of precision medicine is someone's sick, right? That this individual is unique based on, like, say, their DNA, their molecular makeup, and then you treat them specifically with something, a specific treatment or drug that is specific to tailored towards their genetic or their molecular makeup, right? And I believe you're going to have a lot more people that are asymptomatic. So people that are healthy, they don't know that there's a disease, they have a disease or anything like that. So they may have disease, but they wouldn't know about it. Or just people just completely healthy. They're going to take a lot more of these biochemical data, molecular data, maybe even advanced molecular data, and take that into consideration for their health, like what you're talking about. I would say the gym bros would be kind of an example of that kind of this experimentation. And where I'm super, again, not investing advice, entertainment purposes only, the area I've looked into that's been very, very interesting to me is these continuous glucose monitors. So the idea of a glucose monitor is that if you have diabetes, you have to understand, like, what if you have sugar spikes, right, in your blood. And in the past, you would just do a finger prick or some sort of way to measure your glucose levels to see if you're low or high and so forth, right? Well, now there have been devices for the last couple of years that do that. Just monitor. You stick it on. There's two large companies that have it. One of which is Alex mentioned already, Abbott. The other one is this company called Dexcom that specifically focuses on continuous glucose monitors. And they have, by and large, a lot of diabetics now use these continuous glucose monitors, because you can imagine you don't have to finger prick yourself anymore. You just wear it, and it gives you real time data, or as real time as possible on your on your phone. Well, last year, actually, no, yes, 2024 was the first year that some of the both companies actually had consumer FDA approved continuous glucose monitors in late 2024. And so Abbott didn't say how many they've sold so far in 2025, but the folks over at Dexcom said that they have sold about $100 million worth, which kind of each it's about $89 per month to have this. And if you just map that as, let's say, assuming someone wears it every single month, so they have to get 12 of these, right? Then it maps out to be roughly about 100,000 people are trying this out. And you can see that from a performance perspective, like people maybe starting out that are biker people that bike. They want to know the perfect amount of food they need to eat in order to, like, keep a steady sugar, right? You can see how this could expand to more and more people, to potentially first people that are into athletics and performance from that perspective, but then maybe even to the general public. Because what I see more recently is one of the largest podcasts in the world right now is like the Huberman podcast. People are really into this stuff. High Rocks, and which is a kind of an athletic crossover from what's that, CrossFit, right? So CrossFit was the old thing. Now High Rocks is the new thing that everyone wants to do. That people are starting to really get into, like understanding deeply their health instead of just relying on their doctor. They will ask ChatGPT or ask one of the chatbots. They're much more willing to do that. They're willing to go to Hims and Hers, like Alex was suggesting, to purchase their own, directly the drug, potentially even off label. So I guess my bold prediction for 2026 is, I think Dexcom and Abbott, or let's say just Dexcom alone, will probably reach a million consumers for this. So 10x their current consumer base. And this is just a consumer product, not their diabetic product. So it's just one that you can just buy over the counter, because I think this is becoming much, much more uh, part of the zeitgeist. And on top of it, with the various chatbots, because one of the past issues, I mean, Alex lived it at Illumina when we really tried to push into consumer genomics. It was like, how do you interpret the data? Like, okay, I got this genome. What the hell do I do with it? But now with the various chatbots, like, people are much, much more willing to ask these chatbots about their own health. And they actually did a study very, very recently that was, I forgot where it was published. I got to find that publication. I'll put it in the show notes. That when patients reviewed answers from doctors versus the chatbot. They blinded it, so they don't know which one was which. They prefer the chatbot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's a great prediction, and I was going to do the same thing, which is go, yes, the wonderful synergy between these devices for collecting the data are coming online, and now the tools for interpreting it. I have been
Yeah.
collecting my own blood data, weirdly enough. I mean, not myself, but anyway, having very comprehensive blood tests for 15 years now. So I have this huge data set of my own blood cross section, right? And that's now becoming more popular with companies like Function Health coming up and so on. But the great thing for me is I would always eyeball it. I go, oh, look, that's, gone up a little, that's gone down a little. Now you just dump the whole spreadsheet into a chatbot and start to get a really sophisticated statistical analysis about long-term trends and what to think about. And so I think that's very complementary, those two things, both the data generation, but once upon a time it would have been, you would look at it trivially. You go, oh, look, blood sugar went up a little last week, right? Now you can see it in the context of so many different things. It's super interesting.
So actually, that's very interesting that you've done that. You had the wherewithal to think of this and actually do in the past, right? Did you find anything kind of interesting, novel that you say, hey, you know what? Now that I could put it in the chatbot, actually, it looked across time and wow, I didn't. Has a surprising moment come up for you or not really yet?
No, no, I would say surprising. It hasn't discovered anything shocking. It's been more reassuring because I've looked over those numbers a long period of time and nothing particularly alarmed me. So no, I wouldn't say that. I would just go, it's more a reassurance that what I thought I was seeing there was correct. Nothing jumps out at this point.
Actually, just get Costas your take on it. Do you think the government would ever like? Okay, when I say the government, I say Canadian government. Just be
Yeah.
governments around the world. Let's say
Right.
Canadian government. In this very case, do you think the Canadian government would be open to paying and the provincial governments authorities be willing to pay for? No,
Never.
okay.
No. Yeah. I mean, you think about it this way: they did not pay for test strips for type 1 diabetics. Like, what like that's my case. Like, that's my justification. They will never pay for it. Does it make sense? I think so. I think for the vast majority of people, especially as you start to get into that age, if nowhere else, if you start to get into that age where metabolic disease, starts to creep in, where your hemoglobin alpha levels start to change, and you're just seeing things going in the wrong direction. The ability to have a tool that allows you to make better decisions is absolutely, I think, vital in changing the trajectory of where you could end up versus what versus what you have in your hands to be able to manage, right? So it's super powerful as a lifestyle modification tool. Will it ever be supported by governments? No, I think they will always say it's your own. It's in your own hands to manage this yourself. We're not paying for it. No.
But maybe that's a good thing in some ways, right? Maybe that's a good thing that you pay for yourself, you get the value directly, and you
Yeah,
fully control it.
Yeah,
maybe
as
it's
long
like
as they
the
make it available, right? I
maybe,
think that's the thing that is
yeah,
a challenge. Is sometimes they're very paternalistic and they say, well, we're not going to pay for it. We're not going to give you access to it. But we're also not going to allow you to have access to this because we think that maybe you're not going to be able to interpret it correctly, and
right,
it'll cause issues, right? And as
right.
we said, if there are tools that allow you to now better utilize and interpret that data, why stand in the way of informing people and giving them the information they need to manage their healthcare better?
Very well said.